2018 was an eventful year for us Sonic fans. We got the announcement of Team Sonic Racing, Sega tried to remind us that Sonic Runners was a thing, and we got the reveal of this. And much more. As well as that, we got the launch of IDW Sonic the Hedgehog comic series. However, before we get into that, I would like to take a look back at Sonic comic history, because honestly, if it wasn't for the Archie comics, I most likely wouldn't be a Sonic fan. They add so much depth and lore to the universe that attracted me like a moth to a flame. However, when the universe rebooted because of a lot of stupid legal garbage that I won't get into right now, I pretty much lost all interest in it. I still read Sonic Universe fairly regularly, but I basically refused to read the main series because since there was so much stuff Ian was no longer allowed to do because of Sega's stupid mandates, it just felt like a watered down version of what I'd been reading before. Now don't get me wrong, I'm sure there was plenty of good stuff in the reboot, and I probably will get around to reading it eventually. But for me it just felt like the equivalent of what they did to Spider-Man during One More Day. For those of you who don't know, to make a long and horrible story short, One More Day was a story in which Aunt May is dying in the hospital and Mephisto, Marvel's version of the devil, comes to Spider-Man with an offer. Give me your marriage and I'll save Aunt May. He does, and this forever changes the landscape of the Spider-Man comic. Now behind the scenes this was done because the higher-ups at Marvel simply didn't want to write about a married Spider-Man. They thought it made him boring and unrelatable. After this story, many fans quit the book because they felt betrayed. This was very similar to how I felt about the Sonic reboot. A reboot done for completely corporate reasons, Sega not wanting to pay Pender's royalties, that wiped out all forward progress the book had made. However, I did jump back in at the very end of the Unleashed arc that just refused to end. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Unleashed. It might even be one of my top 5 Sonic games, but that whole arc just went on way too long. However, I did enjoy the last few issues I read, and upon seeing that the next arc would be centered around Classic Sonic, who was not supposed to be used as dictated by Sega's mandates, I thought the book might slowly but surely start to morph back into something that more closely resembled the book I had loved prior to the Genesis wave. And then the book got cancelled. And only a few days later we got the announcement of IDW taking the reins for the Sonic comics. And that leads us to today's topic. 2018 was the first year for these comics, but did they have a good start? Well, let's take a look at the first arc, Fallout, and find out. Taking place about a month after Sonic Forces, these first 4 issues serve to get us acquainted with this new post-Forces world. I'd say they do this job fairly well, not being too handholdy. They assume that if you're reading this then you already know who these characters are, however they still provide a brief explanation for those not in the loop. If I had a major criticism, it would be that this first arc wasn't very eventful. As I said in a previous comic review, please God don't go watch it, I understand that this first arc had the job of introducing us to the series and probably didn't have the room for a big knock your socks off kind of plot, but I feel like they could have done better. I have a suggestion, but I'll say that for later in the video. Also, the quote-unquote secret villain was the most obvious thing I've ever seen, but Ian Flynn stated in an interview prior to the first issue that the mystery would be very easy for longtime fans to put together, so I guess I can give it a pass. Overall, a solid first arc. Moving on to the second arc, The Fate of Dr. Eggman. To be fair, I don't think I would count these issues all as one arc, considering the first 2 issues and the last 2 issues don't really fit together too organically, but I'm going by how these are collected in trades. I really enjoyed issues 5 and 6 when I read them, just because I felt like the series was finally picking up, and I genuinely wanted to know where the whole Eggman has amnesia plot was going to take the series. However, one thing that has bothered me more and more since the issues were released was how okay Sonic was just letting Eggman be. You'd think Sonic would be very insistent on Eggman deserving to face justice, simply because he wouldn't be able to let go of his grudge that he's held for years now. Perhaps having someone else needing to be the voice of reason, preventing Sonic from losing it on Eggman. And wouldn't that made Sonic's fight with Shadow more interesting? That Sonic still hates him but doesn't want to just let Shadow kill him? Overall, I enjoyed these 2 issues. And I know it's a lot easier to look at someone else's work and say, it would have been better if you had done this than to create something from scratch. I just think it would have been more interesting is all. There's not much I can say about issue 7. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it, but there's not much to dissect. The twist was super obvious, but I liked the dynamic between Sonic and Metal Sonic. Like I said, not much to talk about, but I still enjoyed the issue. Issue 8, however, I wasn't too thrilled about. It wasn't awful, but I just thought it was kind of uneventful. It introduced Whisper, who is by far my favorite original character from IDW. And it features Silver, the greatest Sonic character ever. But it was one of the biggest defenders of a problem that has plagued the whole series, where I would start reading a book, and then before I know it I'm on page 15 and practically nothing has happened. The act is a fine introduction to Whisper and a decent prelude to Battle for Angel Island, but as an issue itself it was just kinda mediocre. Last but not least we have Battle for Angel Island. The Aftermath issue is yet to come out at the time of this recording, but since the main story basically concluded last issue, I feel like I can still provide a decently thorough examination. Now I don't really know what I can say here that I didn't say during my reviews, so I'll try to keep it brief. Issue 9 was fun, it had some nice character moments, and was a good start to Battle for Angel Island. Issue 10... I'm almost scared to talk about it, because of how mad people got at my review. I didn't like this issue. It was really just not great. I feel like almost everything in this issue that was of value could have been condensed to 5 pages either at the end of issue 9 or at the start of issue 11, which I guess then would have made issue 11 issue 10, but whatever. However, the Mr. Tinker version of I Am the Eggman almost makes this whole issue worth it. Issue 11 was enjoyable, not amazing, but not bad by any stretch of the imagination. I thought every character was represented well, which is one of my biggest things when looking at a comic, or really any kind of media. So overall, Battle for Angel Island was alright. So, did IDW Sonic start off well? I would say yes, but with a few drawbacks. The biggest one that I didn't even realize until looking back on the series for this video is Sonic himself. Now I'm sure people will be slightly confused and/or offended by me saying that, but let me explain. I found that the things I enjoyed the most about the book were the things happening around Sonic, and Sonic is just along for the ride. And with a book like this, it's important to be invested in the protagonist, especially since his name is the title of the book. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, he's just acting like Sonic always acts. He's all gung-ho and he cracks jokes and he does everything Sonic always does. It would be weird to have Sonic not do that. And maybe you're right. But we've seen in the Archie comics that Sonic can be complex. In those comics, Sonic could feel fear and pain and loss. He could love, he could hate, and everything between. But in this, he felt less like a character, more like a window for us to see these stories. I know people are going to say that I'm just some biased Archie fanboy, which, to be perfectly honest, I am. But I really do feel like that characterization was better from an objective standpoint. And I'm sure people will think that this was the best for the first arc to get us introduced to the character. But what if instead they delved a bit more into Sonic's insecurities? Now, just hear me out. So this comic takes place directly after Forces, a game where Sonic had his first major failure, at least from what we've seen. What if, when the series starts, Sonic acts like his normal cheery self, but as a front? Secretly, he feels responsible for all the destruction caused by Eggman, because he wasn't strong enough to stop Infinite. He feels like he doesn't deserve to be looked at as a hero the way he always has been. That would give a good reason as to why he doesn't want to rejoin the Resistance, because he feels like he needs to prove that he can stop this new threat on his own. And that could lead to him recklessly trying to stop Metal alone, needing to accept the help from his friends in order to defeat him. And I know the whole, "my friends make me stronger" cliche has been done to death in pretty much every major hero. But I feel like it would really lend itself to this story. And as I said, it's easier to critique someone else's work than to create your own, so I don't want to give Ian too much grief, as if he watches this. So overall, despite some minor grievances, I'm still very interested to see where the series goes. And I hope you all continue to tune into my reviews of the comics. If you like what you see, then please leave a like and consider subscribing. Thank you for watching. I hope your new year is amazing, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.